would you do when the love of family faces its harshest trial? In a fairy tale village nestled beside the tranquil Savannah River, two sisters, Amara and Zuri, make a pact of profound sacrifice. Zuri agrees to sleep with her sister's husband to carry a child for her. But nothing goes as planned. When the child is born, buried secrets begin to surface. Suspicious glances grow colder, and a shocking truth changes everything. Who is truly the father of the child? And how will Zuri confront her ultimate decision? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to follow this thrilling and emotional story on the African Tales Best channel. Once upon a time, in a small village tucked beside the peaceful Savannah River in Georgia, there lived two sisters, Amara and Zuri. Amara, the elder sister, was a strong woman. On the outside, she appeared tough, but inside she carried wounds that no one could see. Despite being married for many years, she was unable to have children. The longing for the sound of a child's laughter echoing through their small wooden house seemed like an impossible dream. Day by day, the weight on Amara's shoulders grew heavier. The whispered gossip from the villagers, the silent, reproachful glances from her husband's family, everything made her feel trapped in a whirlwind of guilt. At first, her husband comforted her, gently encouraging her to stay hopeful. But over time, those tender words faded, replaced by silence and quiet sorrow. He would often sit alone on the porch, staring into the distance, burdened by desires Amara could not fulfill. Meanwhile, Zuri, Amara's younger sister, was completely different. Youthful, beautiful, and full of life, Zuri carried a compassionate heart and deep empathy. She watched her sister silently endure her pain. She saw the sadness in Amara's eyes, witnessed how Amara quietly wiped away tears upon hearing the laughter of children playing in the village. Amara's pain carved itself into Zuri's heart, leaving her restless, always searching for a way to help her sister. Then, one twilight evening, Zuri made a decision, one that few would dare to even imagine. She stepped into Amara's wooden house, her eyes filled with determination. Amara was sitting at the table, absent-mindedly flipping through an old book, her thoughts drifting elsewhere. Hearing Zuri call her name, Amara looked up and gave a weary smile. Zuri sat down across from her, grasped her sister's hands and spoke firmly. "Sister, I want to help you have a child." Amara's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you saying, Zuri? I don't understand," she stammered, her voice trembling with fear. And a flicker of hope. "I will carry your child," Zuri said, each word slicing through the silence like a blade. "You sacrificed everything to raise me after our parents passed. This is how I will repay you." Amara froze, her heart feeling as if it had stopped. She could never have imagined Zuri would make such a bold decision. Conflicting thoughts raced through her mind. How could she let her sister make such a sacrifice? Yet deep within, a faint glimmer of hope stirred. Maybe this was her last chance to become a mother. After a long silence, Amara choked up, whispering, "But do you understand what this means? This isn't a small decision. It could change your entire life." Zuri squeezed her sister's hands tightly, her gaze unwavering. "I understand, and I'm not afraid. I only need to know that this will make you happy." Yet between them now stood an agonizing choice, and Amara didn't know how to decide. If she agreed, she would have to let Zuri conceive a child with her husband, a choice that defied every principle she had ever held. Could she bear to watch her sister and husband cross that line, just for a child? But if she refused, she knew she would live forever in the ruins of a broken heart and a marriage slowly falling apart. Amara stood at a painful crossroads. One path was her pride, the other, her desperate longing to be a mother. The torment was suffocating. She stood still, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. "I don't know what to do, Zuri," she whispered. "I feel like I'm forcing you into a sacrifice I don't deserve." Zuri wrapped her arms around her sister, her voice soft yet resolute. "You don't have to decide now. I just want you to know I'm willing to do anything for your happiness." That night, Amara could not sleep. In the dark room, only the rustling wind from the Savannah River filled the air. She thought back to all the years they had leaned on each other, the times Zuri cared for her when she was ill, the opportunities Zuri had given up just to support her. Her heart overflowed with guilt, yet somewhere deep down, a small hope lingered. The next day, Amara sat across from Zuri and her husband. Looking into Zuri's eyes, she knew her sister was ready to endure any judgment, all for her happiness. But did Amara have the courage to accept this gift of sacrifice? That question echoed endlessly within her. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, African Tales Best, to follow the next emotional twists in this story. Like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. As the warm spring breeze returned, Zuri began her journey of motherhood, a journey she took on for her sister, Amara. It was a path filled with challenges and overwhelming emotions. The gentle sunlight shimmered on the surface of the Savannah River. Yet within Zuri, waves of inner turmoil quietly stirred. The entire village rejoiced for Amara's family, but that joy was far from pure. Whispers lingered in the air, and curious glances from villagers pierced Zuri's heart like invisible needles. Why would she do such a thing? It's so strange, a woman murmured as Zuri passed by. Zuri heard it, but she didn't turn around. Instead, she straightened her back and kept walking, refusing to let those words wound her. In moments like this, she reminded herself, I'm not doing this to be accepted. I'm doing this out of love, for Amara and her family. Yet, courage wasn't always easy to hold on to. At night, Zuri would lie awake, her hands gently resting on her belly, where a tiny life was growing. She could feel every heartbeat, every delicate movement of the child. The first little kicks brought her to tears, not from pain, but from a sacred connection she had never imagined. This is not just a child, she thought. This is a part of me. Day by day, Zuri found herself growing more attached to the baby inside her. On quiet mornings, she would sit beneath the great tree by the river, softly whispering to the child as if it could understand her. Do you know, little one, I'm doing this to bring happiness to your mother, but I'm scared. I don't know if I can let go when you're born. Her voice trembled, eyes gazing into the distance. Amara couldn't ignore the changes in Zuri. One evening, as Zuri sat knitting a tiny sweater, Amara quietly approached and placed a hand on her sister's shoulder. Are you okay? Amara asked, her eyes filled with concern. Zuri smiled, but it was a smile burdened with unspoken feelings. I'm okay, sister. It's just, I didn't think I'd feel this way. I'm happy to do this for you, but at the same time, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the moment I have to hand this baby over to you. Amara went silent. Zuri's words pierced her heart. She knew with every passing day, Zuri was becoming more attached to the child. Amara squeezed Zuri's hand, her voice trembling. I never wanted you to feel this way. If you want to stop, I won't blame you. Zuri met her sister's eyes, shining with unwavering determination. No, sister. I will continue. I made this choice and I will see it through. I just need time to prepare myself to let go. The months passed and Zuri's belly grew larger along with her complicated emotions. Each time the baby moved, she felt joy and pain. She was happy to be creating something miraculous, yet she couldn't stop thinking about the moment she would have to give away the most precious thing she had. On the night before giving birth, Zuri sat alone in her room. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow on her face. Her hand gently caressed her belly, and silent tears rolled down her cheeks. I love you, little one, but my love isn't meant to keep you. You will bring joy to your mother, but no matter what, you will always be a part of me. As the first light of dawn broke, Zuri knew she was ready. Her journey was no longer just about bringing happiness to her sister. It had become a profound lesson in love, sacrifice, and the strength of a woman's heart. On a sweltering summer night, a sudden storm struck the village, plunging everything into chaos. The wind howled through the thatched roofs, and lightning tore through the pitch-black sky, casting eerie, flickering light over the quiet village. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, hammering on rooftops, blending with the thunder's roar, nature's own scream. Inside the small wooden house, Zuri suddenly clutched her belly, a sharp, agonizing pain crashing over her. The pain was so intense, Zuri couldn't stand. She collapsed to the floor, sweat pouring from her forehead and down her back. Her lips pressed tightly together, holding back cries of pain. Her face turned pale, and panic filled her wide eyes as she looked toward Amara and her husband. A brief, suffocating silence filled the room, before fear exploded into action. Amara rushed forward, catching her sister in trembling arms. She could feel Zuri's body quivering, every breath shallow and broken by pain. "She's in labor!" someone shouted in shock. No one had expected this to happen so soon. The baby wasn't due for weeks, and the raging storm outside made everything even more unpredictable. Amara and her husband hurriedly lifted Zuri onto a makeshift stretcher. They decided to take her to midwife Abini's house, the only woman in the village experienced enough to handle such a dangerous situation. Outside, the storm raged on. Branches lay broken across the path, forcing them to struggle through every obstacle. Amara clung tightly to the stretcher, her arms aching with exhaustion, her heart pounding with fear. Will we make it in time? Can she endure this? These questions spun relentlessly in her mind, tightening around her chest. Meanwhile, Zuri lay on the stretcher, unable to speak through the pain. Each contraction tore through her body like fire, but beyond the physical agony was a shadowy fear creeping into her mind. Is the baby okay? Am I strong enough to survive this? Her chaotic thoughts swirled, blending with the wind's furious screams outside, making Zuri feel as though she was being swallowed by a nightmare with no end. At last, they reached Abini's house. The sky was pitch black. A faint glow from a small oil lamp flickered inside the modest thatched home, casting a mix of warmth and tension. Abini, small in stature but sharp in presence, rushed to meet them. With one glance at Zuri's condition, she immediately signaled everyone to prepare. Amara stood frozen by the door, watching her sister being laid onto the worn-out bed. A wave of helplessness washed over her. Outside, the storm howled louder, as if matching the pain inside. The wind screeching through the cracks mingled with Zuri's moans, creating a symphony of fear and struggle. Abini worked swiftly and decisively, though even she could not hide the tension in her face. "Stay calm, breathe steadily," she commanded, her voice deep and authoritative. Zuri tried to obey, but the pain kept ripping through her body. Tears silently slid down her cheeks, mixing with the sweat pouring from her skin. Time seemed to crawl. Each second stretched endlessly, testing the endurance of everyone in the room. Amara stood still, her eyes fixed on Zuri, her heart tangled in emotions she couldn't name. She wanted to do something, anything, but could only watch her sister battle through the pain. Her fists clenched so tightly that her nails dug deep into her palms, drawing blood, yet she didn't feel it. "This is my fault. If it weren't for me, Zuri wouldn't be suffering like this." In the depths of agony, Zuri felt as if she was standing on the thin line between life and death. Yet through the unbearable pain, she could only think of the child. Each tiny kick inside her was a reminder. She was doing this for her sister, for family. "I have to be strong. This baby needs me." Finally, after hours of excruciating struggle, a sound pierced through the storm, the sharp, clear cry of a newborn baby. The room fell silent, every eye turned towards Zuri and the baby. Abini lifted the child, her tense face breaking into a soft, relieved smile. "A healthy baby boy," she announced. Zuri, utterly exhausted, kept her eyes closed, but a faint smile touched her lips. She felt the tiny hand of the baby wrap around her finger. A touch so warm, yet heartbreakingly bittersweet. In that moment, Zuri knew she had fulfilled the promise she made to her sister, but she also realized that letting go of this child would be the hardest thing she would ever face. Amara slowly approached the bed, her eyes brimming with joy and deep gratitude. She looked at her sister, unable to speak, but Zuri didn't need words. In Amara's eyes, she saw it all. The understanding, the love, and the recognition of her sacrifice. That silent moment between them forged an unbreakable bond, a love too deep for words. Outside, the storm began to ease. The rain softened and the wind no longer screamed through the cracks. But inside that small room, another storm still lingered. A storm of emotions, of sacrifice, and of boundless love. After Zuri gave birth, the village was filled with joy. A grand celebration was held to welcome the new member of the community, a beautiful tradition in the village. Under the warm glow of oil lamps and amidst the cheerful laughter of villagers, all eyes turned toward Amara, cradling the tiny child in her arms, a symbol of hope. Amara smiled brightly, yet beside her, Zuri sat quietly in a corner, her sorrow hidden behind a faint, forced smile. Every time Zuri's eyes rested on the child, a storm of unnamed emotions swelled within her. It wasn't just love, it was also guilt, a heavy burden pressing on her soul. She knew she had kept this secret for too long, and with each passing day, it became harder to contain. This child wasn't only a symbol of new happiness, it was also a part of a past she had tried to bury. One quiet morning, after days of festivities, the village was still drowsy in its slumber. Amara sat on a wooden chair on the porch, gently rocking the baby in her arms. Her eyes glowed with pure love as she gazed into the baby's round, sparkling eyes. Yet in those deep eyes, there was something eerily familiar, something she couldn't quite grasp. At that moment, midwife Abini, who had helped deliver the baby, stopped by. After some casual conversation, Abini suddenly remarked, as if offhandedly, "This child has eyes just like his father's." The words struck Amara like a bolt of lightning in clear skies. She froze, her fingers gently holding the baby's blanket, tightened. Her eyes slowly shifted towards Zuri, standing nearby. The air turned heavy. The once cheerful chirping of birds outside faded into distant echoes. Zuri stiffened, her entire body frozen. Her heart pounded violently, each beat threatening to shatter her. She had known this moment would come, but never imagined it would be so sudden, so harsh. Amara turned slowly, her gaze now darkened with suspicion and pain. "Tell me the truth, Zuri. Who is the father of this child?" Zuri couldn't speak. Her breath quickened, and tears began streaming down her face. She lowered her head, unable to meet Amara's demanding eyes. Fear, guilt, and painful memories tangled in her mind, choking every word she wanted to say. At last, with a trembling voice, she whispered through sobs, "This child is the result of an old love." Silence swallowed the room. Amara stood frozen, her fingers trembling from the sting of disappointment and betrayal. "An old love," she repeated, her voice nearly breaking. "How long have you been hiding this from me?" "So, this child isn't from you and him?" Zuri collapsed to the floor, her head bowed even lower, shoulders shaking with silent cries. There was nothing she could say, no excuse that could ease the pain Amara was feeling. She confessed that in a moment of weakness, she had reunited with a former lover, a man who once meant everything to her, but whom she had to leave behind due to circumstances. The child was the result of that relationship, a truth she had tried to forget, but now stood glaring and undeniable. Amara listened to every word, feeling as if her heart was being torn apart. For so long, she had held on to hope for this child, yet now she was unsure whether to feel relief or sorrow. Relief that the child wasn't the product of Zuri and her husband, a fear she had secretly buried deep inside. But the trust, the expectations she had placed in Zuri now felt shattered. Yet, what hurt most was not the truth, it was the deception. "Why didn't you tell me, Zuri? Why did you let me believe this child was part of my family?" Amara's voice no longer carried anger, only deep aching disappointment. Zuri slowly lifted her tear-streaked face to meet her sister's eyes. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid you'd be angry, that you'd think I had done something unforgivable. I just wanted you to be happy. "But I never thought things would turn out like this." Amara turned away, her eyes falling on the sleeping baby in her arms, and in that moment, she understood. No matter how painful the truth was, this child was innocent. He was part of this family, part of Zuri, and despite everything, he still carried hope for them all. Without saying another word, Amara quietly stood and walked into the house. Zuri remained where she was, motionless, drowning in regret. She knew their relationship would never be the same, but she also understood she had to face the consequences of her actions. Outside, the sun slowly dipped behind the mountains. The last light of day barely broke through the heavy air surrounding the house. Zuri sat there, eyes blurred with tears, staring into the distance, her memories and the present tangled in a web of emotions, with no way out. But the story didn't end there. The day after their difficult conversation, something unexpected happened. Instead of anger or blame, Amara quietly approached her sister. She slowly knelt beside Zuri, wrapping her arms tightly around her, shielding her from the emotional storm raging within them. A single tear rolled down Amara's cheek, but her voice was steady, full of forgiveness. "You've sacrificed so much for me," Amara whispered, each word heavy with sincerity. "This child is our blood. I will love him as my own." Her words flowed over Zuri like a soothing stream, calming her wounded heart. Zuri broke down, sobbing as she buried her face into her sister's shoulder. All the fear, the guilt, the endless torment she had carried dissolved in that embrace. Relief mixed with lingering regret swelled inside her, but she knew one thing for certain. Their bond as sisters had been saved. Amara's love for the child was unshakable, but this was far from over. Days later, on a soft summer afternoon, a cool breeze drifted from the Savannah River into the small village. That day, the village welcomed a stranger. A tall, broad-shouldered man with deep, searching eyes walked slowly through the village path, his gaze scanning each house as though seeking someone. His sudden appearance immediately caught the villagers' attention. They whispered among themselves, curious, yet no one dared to approach him. In the courtyard, Zuri was carefully hanging silk fabrics under the warm sun. A gentle breeze swept through, lifting strands of her hair. As she lifted her head, her eyes locked onto a familiar figure walking toward her. For a moment, Zuri's heart stopped. It was Kofi, the man she had tried so hard to forget, yet never could. Memories of their deep love came rushing back, crashing like waves, bringing both joy and pain. Kofi stopped in front of her, his eyes filled with shock and emotion. "Zuri!" His voice was deep and warm, but heavy with feelings he could no longer hide. Zuri stood frozen, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions crashing into her. She didn't know how to face him. Kofi continued, his words slow and burdened, as if carrying the weight of years apart. He confessed that he had been searching for her for years, holding on to hope that he might one day see the woman who once meant everything to him. But what he hadn't expected was the existence of the child. He had only just learned about it through midwife Abini. The ground beneath Zuri felt like it was slipping away. She couldn't believe the secret about the child had spread this far. Now the child's father stood right before her, pleading for a chance to make up for the past. She gazed into Kofi's eyes filled with sincerity and regret. Yet inside her, everything was tangled in confusion. Kofi paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. He told her he wanted to make things right. For Zuri, for the child, for all the pain he had caused when he left without a word. His voice trembled, but his eyes were steady, determined to correct his mistakes. Zuri remained silent, her hands unconsciously gripping the silk cloth tightly. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Waves of emotion crashed over her, leaving her unable to decide what to do. She could feel the honesty in Kofi's words, but she couldn't forget the pain he once caused. From the doorway, Amara appeared, holding the baby in her arms. Her eyes carefully studied Kofi, observing every move, every expression. She didn't speak, simply stood there trying to understand whether Kofi's presence was a new beginning or a threat to the fragile peace she and Zuri had just rebuilt. In the heavy silence, the baby's pure laughter suddenly rang out, shattering the tension. Kofi turned toward the sound, and in that moment his eyes lit up, as if he had just discovered something priceless. He stepped closer to Amara, his hands trembling slightly as he reached out to touch the baby's tiny hand. A strange warmth spread through him, as if an invisible bond between father and child had just begun to form. Amara's gaze softened. She couldn't deny the sincerity in Kofi's eyes, but she knew the final decision wasn't hers. It belonged to Zuri. Amara gently placed a hand on her sister's shoulder, reminding her she didn't have to face this alone. Zuri slowly lifted her head, her tear-stained eyes now steady with determination. She knew she had to make a choice, not just for herself, but for the child, for their family. And in that moment, Zuri understood. No matter how painful the past was, she couldn't let it define her future. She had to find a way forward, no matter how difficult that path might be. Outside, the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky with shades of fiery orange and soft crimson. The breeze from the Savannah River carried the cool breath of twilight, and there, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, the three of them stood silently, each lost in their own storm of emotions, yet quietly realizing that their story was far from over, that hope had begun to flicker once again. Zuri stood by the Savannah River, where gentle ripples shimmered under the pale moonlight. Her heart felt heavy, weighed down by thoughts with no escape. For countless sleepless nights she lay awake, tormented by visions of Kofi, the child, and the loving gaze of Amara. She knew she was standing at an inevitable crossroads, to keep the secret hidden, protecting her sister's happiness, or to reveal the truth and face the consequences it would bring. Zuri's heart battled endlessly. She knew that Amara had placed all her trust in her, and her sister's love for the child was unconditional. Yet, Zuri couldn't ignore the reality that Kofi, the child's father, had returned, full of sincerity and a desperate desire to fulfill his responsibility. She felt torn in two. Every choice came with pain and loss. One misty morning, as the fog still clung to the fields, Zuri made her decision. She would no longer run from the truth. She stepped into the wooden house, where Amara sat by the window, gently rocking the cradle. The child slept soundly, his soft breaths a sign of the peace Amara was cherishing. But Zuri knew that peace would shatter if she didn't confront the truth. Amara turned, her eyes warm yet shadowed with worry. Zuri sat beside her, hands clasped tightly together, holding on to the last bit of courage she had. Without hesitation, she took a deep breath and spoke. "Sister, I need to tell you something important." Amara watched her quietly, her gaze soft but serious. Zuri couldn't hold back the tears as she began revealing everything. About Kofi, about their past love, and about why she had kept it a secret. Every word felt like a blade cutting into her heart, but she knew the truth had to be told, no matter how painful. When Zuri finished, the room sank into silence. Amara said nothing, her eyes lingering on the cradle where the child slept. Her gaze seemed distant, lost in thoughts that Zuri couldn't reach. The silence stretched on, as heavy as the sorrow that filled the space between them. Finally, Amara turned back. Her eyes held no anger, no blame, just a quiet stillness mixed with sadness. She placed a firm, steady hand on Zuri's shoulder and spoke in a low, unwavering voice. "I won't keep this child if you believe Kofi deserves to be his father. Family is built on truth and love, not lies." Her words swept through Zuri like a strong wind, clearing away the storm of confusion. Zuri never imagined her sister could be so forgiving, so willing to sacrifice her own happiness to protect their trust. Yet, this forgiveness weighed heavier than ever. Amara's grace didn't lighten Zuri's guilt. It only deepened her responsibility. In the days that followed, Zuri spent long hours reflecting on what she must do. She knew that bringing Kofi back into the child's life would change everything, not only for herself but for Amara as well. But she also knew that hiding the truth would trap her in endless regret, and that wouldn't be fair to anyone, especially the innocent child. Zuri made her decision. She arranged to meet Kofi once more. As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting golden light over the Savannah River, Zuri stood before him, her eyes no longer filled with fear or hesitation. She told him her decision, that he had the right to know the truth and to fulfill his role as a father. But she made it clear. What matters most now is not our past, but the future of this child. Kofi was speechless, the weight of his past mistakes sinking deep. Yet a flicker of hope ignited within him. He knew this was his chance to make things right. In the days that followed, Zuri, Amara and Kofi sat together, discussing the child's future. No one spoke it aloud, but they all understood. This wasn't just a decision of responsibility. It was a lesson in love, forgiveness, and sacrifice. Each carried their own pain, their own burdens, but they knew only truth, and love could guide them through. That night, as darkness blanketed the sky, Zuri stepped outside. She lifted her eyes to the stars above. A cool breeze drifted from the Savannah River, carrying the scent of earth and the calm of night. For the first time in months, her heart felt lighter. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it, because she was done running. The radiant sunset bathed the village in golden hues, painting the simple thatched roofs and the shimmering Savannah River in soft, warm light. The entire village gathered for the final ceremony, an event they all knew would leave a lasting mark on their hearts. The air was thick with silence, broken only by somber, understanding gazes. Standing in the center of the gathering, Zuri cradled the child in her arms. Her heart was heavy, yet her steps were steady. Slowly, step by step, Zuri walked toward Kofi, who waited at the center. His eyes were a storm of regret and determination as he opened his arms to receive the child, the living symbol of a love once abandoned. When only a few steps separated them, Zuri paused. She lowered her head to gaze at the child one last time. The baby's wide, innocent eyes seemed to look deep into her soul, and a silent tear slid down Zuri's cheek. "Love him the way I once did," she whispered, her voice trembling yet firm. Kofi took the child into his arms, holding him tightly, as if to make up for every moment he had missed. The village remained still, silent. Only the soft wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it nature's quiet blessing. Amara stood nearby, watching everything unfold. Her face glowed with quiet grace, but in her eyes lingered a deep, profound sadness. When her gaze met Zuri's, no words were needed. Both sisters understood the long, painful journey they had endured together. Amara smiled softly, a gentle smile, filled with love and forgiveness. She knew that sometimes love isn't about holding on, but about knowing when to let go so others can find their own path. Zuri climbed onto the waiting carriage, joining Kofi and the child. The creaking wheels rolled over the dirt road, blending with the steady rhythm of hearts beating in hope for the future. The villagers watched in silence. No words were spoken, yet everyone understood. This was a new beginning, not just for Zuri, but for everyone connected to this story. Quietly, Amara walked to the highest hill in the village, the place she often visited to find peace. From there, she could see the small carriage slowly disappearing into the horizon, taking with it her sister, the man who once loved Zuri, and the child she had once called her own. A single tear traced down Amara's cheek, but it was not a tear of loss or regret. It was a tear of release, of unconditional love. Standing atop the hill, Amara felt a lightness in her heart, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She understood now. Love isn't about possession. Sometimes it's about sacrifice, allowing others to find happiness. That was the greatest lesson this journey had given her. In life, we often cling to what we love, fearing its loss. But sometimes letting go is the truest act of love. True love isn't measured by how much we can hold on to, but by the forgiveness and sacrifice we give to those we care for. But will the journey ahead for Zuri, Kofi, and the child be everything they hope for? Can new love heal old wounds? And what about Amara, who stayed behind? Will she find happiness for herself? We can only wait and see what surprises the future holds. If you want to know what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to African Tales Best and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episode. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Zuri was right to let go of the child? Will Amara find her own happiness? We look forward to hearing your thoughts. This story isn't just about love or sacrifice. It's about the journey each of us must take to discover our true worth. Join us as we continue to explore more inspiring stories on this channel.